You feel fear when you think about taking on a big risk in the form of a big change or challenge in your life. I'm afraid every day of my life. I just don't let fear stop me. You've learned nothing from your success other than the receipt of an inflated ego. If I exercise my risk tolerance, my threshold for risk, like a muscle, it will become stronger and able to withstand greater pressure.
Frank, I'm excited about this conversation. I've been looking forward to it. So welcome to the Point of Impact.
Well, you and I had a pretty good, I guess you'd call it a interview, a pre-qualifying conversation. It's too bad we didn't record some of that because it was great. And me too, as in me too, looking forward to this.
Well, I'll tell you what, we've got a few interests in common. Being, the first time we met, Badwater. And I apologize. Your name sounded familiar, but I'm a little better with faces. Sorry.
Yeah, we met in I think it was 2023 when you were running.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you run it that year?
Badwater was just before my double knee replacement surgery, but I was out there on my birthday because my birthday is at the end of June. And I decided to go out before I had my knees replaced and just try to hobble along just for fun, not during the race or anything, just to celebrate my birthday along. I think we ran from Furnace Creek to Stovepipe as my birthday present to myself.
That was you said your birthday was end of June. I think that year the Badwater actually landed right on 4th of July.
It did. It did. Yep. I stayed. I met... I think that was the year Ashley Paulson won the race, the female runner, if I'm not mistaken. So I met a bunch of people at pre-runner check-in, and then I took off to go back to Florida to have my bilateral knee replacement.
How many times have you run it up to then?
I have started Badwater 13 times. I've finished Badwater 7 and failed to finish 6.
So 13 total entries, attempts at Badwater. That's a lot of time spent in Death Valley.
It's a lot of time spent training out there. I used to go out there and train all the time. There were a couple years I was invited to come that I withdrew before the race even started. So, I mean, I had a streak going for a long time. As we get older, it gets harder. I haven't given up yet. I'd like to go back. I'd honestly like to go back and see Danny Westergaard. Yeah, I think you know Danny Westergaard. I'd like to see him tie Marshall Ulrich's record of 20 finishes, which would be in 2027.
I think it's one of the most interesting facts about that. Is that because of how many times you've attempted Badwater, your wife has actually gotten a record.
Yes, she has a record. Maybe she shares the record now with David Jones's wife, because Nilsa has crewed me 13 times, and then she crewed Lisa one time when I did not run. Lisa Smith-Batchen, your coach, my ex-coach. So she's crewed that race 14 times.
That's awesome. Does she run too?
No, Nilsa's not a runner. She's just the greatest crew chief in the history of history.
Besides Badwater, you've got a pretty eclectic resume. Very interesting, driven life so far. It's actually one of those things that's just an abundance of story topics, and it was a kind of a challenge to figure out where to start. So maybe we roll the dice and talk about Demolition Derby.
Oh my goodness. I have, let me see here, 20 times 10. I've been on over 200 podcasts. I have never been asked about my Demolition Derby. So there you go. That is good. I remember.
One heck of a roll of the dice.
There you go. I mean, you asked, is there anything that's off limits? Is there anything you want to talk about at the beginning? And I'm like, it's going to be the usual. Maybe we'll go somewhere we haven't gone. So in the Demolition Derby, I raced, I placed third in a Demolition Derby. I remember I got a 6-pack of Mickey's Big Mouth beer. If you remember that Mickey's Big Mouth beer, I don't even drink. But I had never been, not much scares me, but when that flag dropped, and I'm not, this was in Colorado, a bunch of good old boys. And I know you don't have sight, but I have longer kind of purplish hair and I wear kind of louder clothes. These guys with the cowboy hats and the chaps and the guns in the back of their windshields of their trucks, they were out to get me. They were out to crush me in that demolition derby. And somehow I survived to make it to the last 3. But Aaron, and I was coached on how you actually wreck into another car, how you take out another car, what you don't do. Like you don't run into another car with the front end of your car because you ruin your radiator and then your car is shot. So, I kind of brushed up on how to do it. But I'll tell you what, within the first 30 minutes, there was a car that this guy went out after me right away, right when the flag dropped. This car, you're supposed to back into to the other car to try to take him out, back into their radiator, back into their wheel well. Mm-hmm. This guy backed into my radiator, missed the radiator, but went right up onto the hood. You don't have any windshields. All you have is rebar that's soldered in there to keep parts from flying in your face. His back tire was spinning within 5-6 inches of my face up on that. And I about passed out because I couldn't get any blood to my head. I was so nervous about what was going to happen.
I think when hearing about that story, you were equating it to fear, right? This isn't something you're experienced at, and the fear was more in the anticipation. But once you got out there, it was all business. It was about,
once I got out there, I turned into a competitor. First, I went out there to survive because I knew that all these locals were gunning for me, and once I realized, yes, I was being ganged up on. You can fight, flight, or freeze, and I chose to fight by taking out as many of these guys as I possibly could. And in the end, I did, and I placed third. So, yeah, I was, I know at the end of the podcast, we're going to talk about a couple quotes that you like. And one of mine, I'm just going to put it out here now. We'll talk about it later, is in life, you're going to have regrets. No matter what you do, you're going to have regrets in life. I'd rather regret what I did than what I didn't do. I don't want to be sitting on my porch at whatever, in a rocking chair at 85 years old, regretting what I didn't do. So when the opportunity presented itself to race in this derby or compete, it's not a race, you compete in this derby, no other wives would allow their husbands to do it. That was one of the reasons I was chosen, because Nilsa said, he wants to do it, that's fine. And all the other husbands, they kind of worked on the car. They were the ones who set up the car. But I certainly am glad that I didn't say no to something I had no experience in.
You've got I guess maybe a unique perspective on fear and failure. I know it took me a while, but I started thinking of failure. I learned that failure is an opportunity to learn. And I know maybe we have a bit of an immunity to the fear of failure, because you kind of attempt, or at least you plan it out, a pretty spectacular events, projects, career paths. Where does that come from?
Well, let's get back to what you talked about fear of failure. So if you look back in your life, and everybody listening and watching, you look back in your life, you've learned nothing from your success other than the receipt of an inflated ego. You're taught nothing from success. You begin to read your own headlines, believe your own hype, take credit for your wins. For those who succeed at everything, I kind of feel sorry for them, because your learning curve is nowhere near as radical as those of us who fail a lot. And, like Badwater, for example, I'm almost 50-50. Like I failed 6 times and made it 7. So, my philosophy on fear is you feel fear when you think about taking on a big risk in the form of a big change or challenge in your life. So a relational, dietary, physical, spiritual types of change that we contemplate. And when we think about a physical change or challenge, that's when we feel fear, Aaron. It's once we take the risk, once we go over the hump on the roller coaster and start, because when we're going up the hill on the roller coaster, we're terrified because that bar is squeezed down on our chest. Our heart's about ready to pump out of our chest. We're ready to pass out because no blood's going up the jugular to the brain. But when we go over the top of that crest, that first hill, what happens to most of us? We throw our hands up in the air and we can't wait to do it again. So I'm afraid. Here's the thing. Yes, we built $50 million spec houses, which is a house built without a buyer in mind. I'm not a custom builder. There's a lot of risk I've taken, but I am afraid every day of my life. So this is the people think, Frank, you must have an aversion to fear. This is not true. I'm afraid every day of my life, Aaron. I just don't let fear stop me.
It's more of a unique perspective rather than an absence of. Right? Being able to logically dissect the fear, the emotion, and understand that it is maybe a warning sign, like the smoke alarm. It tells you something, but you don't stand there and get entranced by the smoke alarm. You try to figure out what it's trying to tell you. Is that gas? Is it smoke? Or does it just need a new battery? Maybe it's a false alarm. But anyways, you take it to, it's not fear of not keeping up with your competitors or your peers. You're going way beyond. Conquering the fear of, say, rappelling out of a helicopter onto the roof of one of your spec homes.
Aaron, it goes back to most conversations that you're going to have on point and impact can be traced back to behavioral characteristics and traits can be traced back to childhood. And so, when fear presented itself to me as a young child, I felt I wasn't educated. I went to 4 high schools in 4 years. I was in juvenile detention 7 times before I turned 18. So one of the things I realized, I don't care what your GPA is or where you were educated. To get ahead in life, in anything, you must take risks. Like the day you decided to start a podcast, that's a big risk. You had to invest in, the microphone and you had to pay, Riverside and all that. So there was a point when you were probably pretty scared to think, I'm going to, as a blind and partly, deaf individual, I'm going to host a podcast. That's kind of scary, but you did it. My advantage is not in my education. I would say at my age now, it's in my experience, but it's in my ability to feel fear and then pursue the endeavor anyway. And that's not all the time. Like there's times fear will stop me and it said, Frank, this is not a good investment. This is not a good idea. Let's not do this. And I won't do it. I don't have a death wish. Mm-hmm. But I don't want to be sitting on that rocking chair at 85, regretting some things that I didn't pursue. And the last point on fear, this is something everybody can relate to, if you're in sport or not. Your risk tolerance, your threshold for risk is like a muscle. So think about your threshold for risk. I don't have big muscles, but think about going to the gym and exercising your glutes or your biceps or triceps or hamstrings, whatever, your chest. Eventually it gets stronger and able to withstand greater pressure. It's the same thing with fear, Aaron. If I exercise my risk tolerance, my threshold for risk, like a muscle, it will become stronger and able to withstand greater pressure.
And if you're not failing, you're probably not trying hard enough. You're saying way too safe. Where did this come from? This drive for achievement, this aspirational characteristic? Because I know you had kind of a troubled childhood, right?
Yeah. So when I left Indiana with $50 in my pocket and a one-way plane ticket and a little backpack with all the clothes I could carry, at 18, I didn't know what I wanted, but I know what I didn't want. And that was to stay in Indiana and kind of just live a mediocre life. So I landed in Palm Beach, which was like landing in the Wizard of Oz, right in the castle without even having to go down the yellow brick road. And I land there, and this is like lifestyles of the rich and famous. This is like, for you younger people, it's like MTV Cribs, where you look at this voyeuristic look inside the lifestyles of the rich and famous. And I was Aaron, I'm a corn-fed country boy from Indiana. I was surrounded by affluence when I landed at 18. Now, when you're 18, 19, 20 years old, you're materialistic, you're consumeristic, and for some of us, we're egotistic. And let's just knock out the ego for a minute. You're consumeristic and materialistic. So I wanted what the wealthy had. And I then decided to live an extraordinary life by resisting an ordinary approach. So what does that mean? I stopped doing all drugs and drinking. I stopped staying out late with my friends. I started living a very disciplined life. I started going to school on my tennis students that I was teaching tennis to. I didn't go to school, but I was a tennis instructor. And I would teach these people how to hit a better forehand and backhand. They would pay me for an hour, Aaron, but I would tire them out after 45 minutes on purpose. So they had to sit down. I would bring them a cold drink and a towel and ask them the question, sir, madam, Aaron, whoever I'm teaching, how did you get here? And I earned my PhD in entrepreneurship and my master's in real estate on that tennis court over a 2-year span, teaching very wealthy people how to play tennis. And they taught me that how they made their money was through real estate.
Mm-hmm. It's like all the stories I've heard of people starting, guys starting as caddies at golf country clubs, and they listen in on the conversations. Sometimes they get just that one piece of advice that changes the trajectory of their life. So it makes perfect sense. The tennis courts as well.
It's, you know what? Here's how it went. So let's say I had 30 tennis students in a given week, and I would always have that 15 minutes with each one of them because I tired them out after 45 minutes. And more often than not, they were 9-to-5ers. Let me make sure I phrase that right. So they were doctors, lawyers, inventors, what have you. But they took their discretionary income, money left over after paying for their mansions and their cars and their families and their yachts, and they invested it in real estate. So Aaron, when I heard that story for the first time, it was just entertaining. I wasn't going to do anything with it. But what if the 30 people I was teaching tennis to, out of those 30, 20 of them made their true fortune in real estate? Well, then I may have a 1.8 GPA out of high school. That doesn't make me stupid. If I'm listening to how these other people made money, which was real estate, then this was back in the late 80s, before the word flip. The word flip was only used in gymnastics. It was not used in real estate. Not even flipping real estate wasn't even a thing yet. And we started flipping crack houses before anybody was doing it. I mean, when I say crack houses, like $50,000 starter homes. Mm-hmm. And I learned that on the tennis court. I learned that application, not the crack house stuff, but I learned the real estate connection from my tennis students.
It's about the same time the crack house was about the same time you met your wife, right? Also,
this is true. This is very true. So my very first real estate transaction I did in 86, only one, and then I met her in 87, and we've done hundreds of real estate transactions together. Why together? Well, we got married in 1990, so 36 years married. But she's an interior designer, and I kind of have the vision. I don't have a degree in architecture, but I do design the houses. I'm really good at marketing them, and she will furnish them. So it's a wonderful partnership. It's dangerous to work with your spouse, but it's a wonderful partnership. And we literally went from a $50,000 crack house, not living in one, but, doing it for a living, to doing a $50 million house on speculation. And for those who are watching or listening, you build a house on speculation. That means you're building a house without a buyer. That means you are not working for Mr. and Mrs. Smith who are putting up the money. You are putting up all the money. You are taking all the risks. You're making all the design choices. Actually, you're buying the land, designing the house, building the house, furnishing the house, and then selling the house. And if you don't sell it, you're eating out of a dumpster. If you sell it, you're eating at a steakhouse.
Let me tell you a real quick story and see if it sounds at all familiar. I tricked my girlfriend a few years ago into going to Nantucket and filming a video of a couple on a sailboat and going to one of the nicest restaurants on the island. And at the very end or right at the beginning, actually, of the dinner that was at a table that was set for us on the beach outside the restaurant, I proposed. As it turns out, the whole video was a ruse. And I caught her off guard. But you had a pretty fun stunt yourself, didn't you?
Yeah. So mind you, I'm in my 20s, and in my teens, living in Indiana, I fancied myself a mountain climber, even though there was no mountains. So I would find things that were tall to climb. And one of the things I would climb would be TV tower antennas that were 1,200 feet vertical, just the ones that go way up. And I would find those wherever they were, and I would hop the barbed wire fence and I would climb them. I was good. Like I would climb without ropes. I could climb to the very top. And so for our wedding, I found in Boca Raton, Florida, near the restaurant I took my wife to and blindfolded her, I found a water tower that serviced the city of Boca Raton with their water. So if you've ever seen a water tower, they're massive. They hold millions of gallons of water, and they work in gravity. So this thing was protected with a barbed wire fence. And if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it right. So I camouflaged myself, meaning I dressed in army fatigues. I put all the grease paint on my face, had my hair, I have kind of longer hair. I had my hair up underneath the hat, and I scaled the barbed wire fence. It was 2 layers of barbed wire fence. I got over those, and on my back, tied to my back, was a banner, a big, huge banner. It was 40 feet long. Once it was unrolled, it said, "Nilsa, will you marry me?" So I scaled the tower, got all the way to the top, put on the banner, climbed down, got back over the barbed wire fences, changed out of my army fatigues, washed my face off, took her to dinner. And during the dinner, I gave her the traditional big box. It got to a smaller box and then a smaller box. And eventually it was almost a ring size. And then I put a blindfold on her, put her in the car, drove her around, and we ended with a blindfold. We ended up at the base of this water tower. I had commissioned a neighbor who allowed me to use their electricity to plug in one of those coming attractions lights that you see outside of a movie premiere, 200,000 watt lights. And so when we got to the base of the water tower, we flipped on the light, which showed way up on this tower that was 120 feet above the ground, and showed, "Nilsa, will you marry me?" I told her to take off her blindfold, Aaron, but she had been blindfolded for over a half hour. So what happens to your eyes? Like, she couldn't see. Her eyes were not being, they were so conditioned to the dark, they weren't adjusting. And she wasn't saying anything. I thought she was saying no. Like, she didn't say yes. And I said, "Honey, listen, if you don't say yes, I'm climbing back up there, and I'm going to stay up there until you say yes." And so finally, she's rubbing her eyes and looking up there. She saw the banner, and she said yes.
That's another example of overachieving, I think. But it worked.
It worked. It worked.
Worth it.
It's been a great 36 years, I'll tell you.
It's fantastic. Going back to that crack house, this was the beginning of your unique marketing strategy too, wasn't it?
Yeah. it doesn't matter the price point at which you sell, be it a first-time home. There's no $50,000 houses available anymore. So let's say a first-time home buyer house in almost any market around the country might be $250,000. So it doesn't matter if you're at the entry level, first-time home buyer, or all the way up to the ultra wealthy who pay tens of millions of dollars for a house. You're competing with a lot of other properties that are for sale. And I realized that if I were able to draw attention in a very, very intoxicating kind of way, a very theatrical kind of way, maybe a little bombastic, that all I wanted to do, Aaron, and this is something that's misunderstood about the way I market my real estate. They think it's an ego run amok because the productions are extremely theatrical. And yes, I'm front and center in most of them because I write the whole script. The idea is so basic, which says the following. I am nothing more than the opening act that gets you to the front door. I am the ringmaster. I'm the carnival barker. I'm the P.T. Barnum that gets you to the front door. And then we put on this show that wouldn't even make it to Vegas or a back lot of Broadway. And then I step aside and you walk in the front door of one of our beautiful waterfront homes that we've created. And that's when the true show starts. And so if let's say I'm selling a $10 million house. And mind you, I have a realtor that works with me. I don't sell them on my own, but I have a realtor that works with me. And so when somebody walks in the front door of that house, that's what I want to take center stage. Listen, I know you can't see, but if you bought a house from me, you would want to make sure I did not come with the house. I don't. My hair, my clothes, anything that you might dislike about my personal appearance, or if you love it, I don't come with the house. I am there to simply gain your attention enough by way of a very exciting, like I'm going to do this in September at our new Mountain Modern home in North Carolina. I mean, wait till you see what we have planned for that place. The people will be, I'm only limiting it to 125 people because the show is fantastic. Everything's free, not exotic. What's the word I'm looking for? Gourmet food trucks, ice luges, treasure hunts. There's actually Bigfoot's going to make appearance, like a real Bigfoot's going to make appearance at this party. And then I get out of the way. And I've done that since the first $50,000 house. Now, back then, I didn't have the budget to do what we do now. But I will tell you what, I don't think it's in the book you're reading now, but in my very first book, I talk about how I would don, meaning I would put on a pink gorilla outfit and I'd jump up and down out in front of the house with an open house sign to get attention from people driving by a $50,000 house. And from there, it just grew, the show kind of grew. But in the end, here's the part where people who maybe are haters, or I don't care about haters, but want to say that my grand unveilings are just a little too over the top. If I was a flash in the pan variety of success, all this theatrics would have lasted maybe a house or two, and then I would have faded into the abyss. I've been at it since I've been at it almost 40 years. And so there's a lot of flash, and I teach people all the time. Well, not all the time. There's certain people I will teach that you've got to have the ability to brand, the ability to get one's attention, the ability to heighten the experience a buyer has with their five senses, sight, sound, smell, touch, and taste, to the point of subliminal euphoria, subliminal intoxication. You must have this because your product or service doesn't speak for itself. You're the carnival barker. And so that's the approach we take. And then I slowly fade out of the way and let the buyer come in with a checkbook with a digit and a bunch of zeros after that first digit. And listen, a lot of times these people walk in the door on a Tuesday to see the house and they're sleeping there by Friday as the owner.
Well, a mix of P.T. Barnum and Evel Knievel. And so showmanship with some awe and shock. That's I guess it's a good thing you weren't emulating Super Dave.
No. But you used the word awe and shock. With the other S word is substance. if there was no substance, this would be laughable. It would be a joke. And so and I think at the first time, a few times, it was kind of a joke until we were selling these things for 5 and then 10 million and 15 million. And, then people said, hey, I can't wait for Frank's next creation. I can't wait to go to his party. I can't wait to bring if you're a broker, I can't wait to bring my buyers, because you sell a $20 million house, you get a $600,000 payday, $600,000 in commission. So I make sure that you get paid quick. And so I need you as the real estate community, professional community, to be there. You're going to get entertained, but the thing you're going to appreciate the most is the house that we have created. Actually, it's 3-dimensional art that we have created, that all you have to do as a high-end real estate broker is get your client there.
You're definitely working under constraints, but you break through them. I mean, it's not like you were held back by comps, right? You are creating a whole new category, this real estate art.
Yeah, it's funny. People think that. So yes, a real estate artist. Do you know it was the Wall Street Journal in 1997 that called me that in an article they wrote, and I ran with it. I didn't make it up. They gave that title to me. And I'm like, you know what? I don't like the word developer. I think it's like the word guru. It's just like a negative connotation. So I always wished I could play an instrument well, wished I could sing well, wished I could sculpt well. I can paint a little bit, but me and my wife creating 3-dimensional art, like I do like the expressive experience of creating art. And in our case, we're creating art that you can, live in, 3-dimensional art. And that satisfied the artist in me. And now writing books, I've written 10 books in 9 different genres. That's also art. For those of you who are watching this, you'll see, I get it all the time, Aaron. What band do you play in? Or what instrument do you play? And I none of those things. It's an icebreaker a lot of times. No, I'm not in a band, but I am an author. And then, it goes from there. But I believe that anybody in business, you get to be an expert in the craft of your business, not in the business of your business. Like I became an expert at the craft of real estate, not the business of real estate. And I guess another way to say that is, build your reputation first and your bottom line will follow. I always focused on reputation first, even if it was at the expense of my margins. So my margins were compressed at the beginning. And then eventually what happens is your margins start to expand because of your reputation. So I think you'll get to it in Aspire. Talks about, sacrifice margin while building your reputation.
And speaking of which, reputation, you're a big advocate for personal branding. How do the two differ in definition?
So personal branding is simply the act of setting yourself apart from your competitor. We could go through a whole podcast talking about personal branding. Mm-hmm. Reputation is what's left behind after you've set yourself apart. Your reputation, you can reinvent I've reinvented myself a few times, but what never has reinvented itself is my reputation. The only thing that's happened to my reputation is it's grown more solid. It's been enhanced. But that's the Rock of Gibraltar is your reputation. I've taken, experimented a little bit with branding, personal branding. I've helped other people brand themselves. And especially, in real estate, Aaron, because there's about 50,000 people in the world out of 8 billion that can afford what I do for a living. So you better believe I need to figure out a way to make myself stand out first, then my product or service. You're not Coke. You're not Apple. You're not NVIDIA. You're Aaron and I'm Frank. So what are we going to do first? We're going to make sure that because people will think they're buying you. If they like what you have to say, every single day you're selling yourself. Every single day you've got to sell yourself. once you get good at that, people believing in what you're going to say, you keep your word. You don't I never cut corners in the houses that I built. I mean, we would always over improve our houses. So that's where a reputation is built. And then, oh, by the way Frank approaches his real estate artistry is a little avant-garde. It's a little unusual. All that was simply designed to do was have me stand out from my competitors. That's it. If I could sing opera, for example, then I'd be the operatic real estate artist or something. I'd sing all of my listings or all of my. I'm not. I have no talent outside of creating three-dimensional art. But it doesn't matter. Back to your original question, it does not matter the line of work that you're in, or if you're not in any kind of work. If personal branding, out of 8 billion people, what are you going to do to set yourself apart, to make you memorable? And if you've got something to sell, then that enhances your ability to sell the thing, the product, the widget, or the service. Following through with what you committed to doing in that sales pitch, that's where reputation is built.
For someone who builds these very unique spec homes, you probably put your family into a fairly mundane home itself, right?
Yeah, I don't. Listen, it's funny. For those of you who can see me, I am a lot less exciting than I look. I drive a 1988 Yugo. I have a 1990 Yugo convertible. We lived in the same house. It was nice. I mean, listen, it was on the beach, but I bought that house almost 30 years ago for next to nothing and sold it for a ton of money because it's location. Mm-hmm. I don't smoke. I don't drink. I don't do drugs. I don't gamble. I don't womanize. I don't overeat. I don't oversleep. My wife calls me a nerd in sheep's clothing. You know, he's really not as exciting as he looks. So, you know, that's all part of reputation. It's all part of discipline. Like you were in the military. I would have been really good in the military because I understand discipline. I understand following orders. I understand like the teamwork associated with the military. I might have been an outlier. I don't know how long I would have lasted, but I would have loved the discipline associated with the military because I love discipline. That's why, you know, like at Badwater, I don't have motivation problem. I really don't have a problem being self-starting. A lot of people do. And people like you and me help people to be self-starters and to learn how to start yourself without babysitting. You know, you help people, you coach people, you inspire people. One of the things I don't like doing that I used to do is like I was like Mr. Accountability, holding people accountable. I don't care how much you're going to pay me or donate to my charity. I don't want to work to be a glorified babysitter for you. You know, I want people who are aspirational, meaning motivation washes off and goes down the drain with a soap at night. Mm-hmm. Inspiration lasts about as long as a bad sunburn. Aspiration can alter your DNA. Aspiration is like the Fabergé egg. Aspiration is so sacred that by way of, let's say Badwater, for example, I aspired to finish the toughest foot race in the world back in 2004. Was I motivated to train every day? No. Was I inspired to get up at 3 and drag a tire over and back a bridge down here to simulate the Mount Whitney Hill? No. But I never lost the aspiration that I wanted to finish that race. That's the difference between motivation, inspiration, and aspiration. Mm-hmm. I aspired to be a best-selling author, even though I never went to college and had a 1.8 GPA. Was I always like this recent book I'm writing? It's over 2 years in the making. Am I motivated to write every day? No. Am I inspired to finish another chapter? No. But am I going to lose the aspiration that says I'm going to become a 10-time best-selling author now? I will never lose that. That's the difference. So when you're experiencing my book, Aspire, you've already learned the difference between motivation, inspiration, and aspiration. And the last thing I'm going to say about that, we'll go to another topic. Human beings are not wired to stay motivated. That's why there's a multi-billion-dollar industry out there built around motivation. Vitamin M, as I call it, motivation, doesn't last. So we're constantly seeking a way to, put the vitamin M into our veins. It's the same thing with inspiration. It lasts a little longer, but it doesn't last forever. Aspiration Once you decide, what do you aspire to become? What legacy do you aspire to leave behind? What do you aspire to do this time next year that you're not doing now? Those things stand the test of time.
How many books are you up to now?
I'll be releasing my 10th book in September.
Awesome. This is the romance novel?
No. This is Hell's Heaven. Is It Really Forever? It's a psycho-spiritual thriller, which is actually a genre that doesn't exist. We're trying to create a whole new genre in book lore. It's a manuscript, a concept that and this is unusual for me. I sat on this concept for 8 years because I did not feel enlightened or worthy enough to write it. I was not ready. And that's not like me. I find something I want to do, I'm just going to do it. It took me 8 years to feel, I'll use the word, it's an esoteric word, enlightened enough to write this thing. Hell's Heaven, Is It Really Forever? But the theme, the recurring theme through all of my books, and there's 9 different genres represented in those 10 books, that the recurring theme through all of them is I am a pathological optimist. And whether it's a novel, this book is a nonfiction novel, which is a really rare kind of book. The new one, Hell's Heaven, Is It Really Forever? Is a nonfiction novel. If it's a how-to book, if it's a mindset book, if it's a philosophy book, if it's a real estate book, if it's a spiritual book, a Christian romance novel, there's always hope, faith, and promise built into every single book I write. And I think that's why people like to read them.
That's extraordinary. And what some people might think as a disadvantage to your advantage. In fact, you wrote a whole book on the subject of turning your challenges into advantages, didn't you?
Adversitology. Yes. Adversitology was a book. It was my 8th book. And that book has done quite well because adversitology, like geology is the study of the earth, biology, the study of the body, theology, the study of religion. Adversitology is the study of adversity. It's a made up word. It doesn't even exist, but it's a perfect way to describe. I don't care who you are watching or listening to this. You will have some form of physical, financial, relational, spiritual, dietary adversity in your life. And I wrote this book because I was going through a physical adversity that nearly took my life. It was, I don't even like to mention the diagnosis I had, but it was a life-taking, not life-threatening diagnosis. And once I got through that dark time in my life where I almost lost my life to this diagnosis, I wrote a 9-step plan that I followed myself to get me to the other side of what was a physical adversity. So the subtitle is Adversitology, Overcoming Adversity When You're Hanging On by a Thread. And yes, it's part memoir, but it's also designed to do 2 simple things. I can't help you avoid adversity, but by reading Adversitology, and when you feel like you're, hanging on by a thread, I can help you overcome that adversity quicker and with less pain.
Branson is dyslexic. Musk was self-diagnosed Asperger's, or was it? Yeah, I think it's Asperger's. He self-diagnosed at 10 years old. I think his mom was like, "He's so smart. I shouldn't argue with him." But I too accredit my injuries, my illness, the disabilities, with being the catalyst for all the things that happened after, the things that I've accomplished since then. And I think you do the same.
Aaron, what happened in your life? You can credit it, but those are your superpowers. Everybody has superpowers, and they come from the oddest place. So yes, I have probably ADD, ADHD, OCD, ODD, you name it, man. I probably got it. But I always have used those defects, air quotes, as my superpower, and they made me a lot of money. I really loathe the thought where parents put their kids on medication because their kids can't sit still. I mean, there's exceptions. I'm not knocking anybody who has to do that to your child. Please don't turn off the podcast because I said that. But I'm glad my parents never did it because once you learn between the ages like 4 and 10, depending, this isn't my claim. These are psychiatrist claims. That's when our core personalities are formed. After the age of 10, we are who we are for the rest of our life. This is a fact. Our brains are wired to be who we are for the rest of our life. So what I'm telling you, and this is really, it's shocking when I talk at like commencement speeches at rehab facility or somebody's gone through rehab, 20-day program or 50-day program or whatever, they were on drugs, is you're not changing. You have a synapse in your brain that causes you to be attracted to addictive behavior. Well, my therapist says I'm addicted to excitement. That's what she says I am. I'm addicted to excitement. And when I was younger, Aaron, I found a very destructive outlet for that behavior. Stealing cars, robbing convenience stores, doing drugs, selling drugs. Did I need the car that I stole? No. Did I need the few, bucks I got out of a convenience store from holding it up at gunpoint with a fake gun? No. It was exciting. So, and that sounds odd to most people. I found a constructive outlet for what used to be a destructive tendency. I'm still have addicted to excitement, even when it's it used to be an adrenaline like mainline. Now it's an adrenaline drip at my age. But finding a constructive outlet for what used to be a destructive tendency says one really important thing. You don't change. You redirect, or in the case of like a suppressed childhood, you reignite something that has been suppressed because you had a really rough upbringing. Please don't try to change. If you have any of these special characteristics, or if you're watching and your child has special characteristics, ADHD, ADD, OCD, ODD, you name it, the whole chicken soup of diagnoses, help them redirect that into a constructive outlet. You used a great example of Elon Musk. He could have redirected that into a very destructive life, but he didn't. So I think it's super liberating when you realize you don't have to change. You simply redirect or reignite.
Yeah, imagine if he, turned into some, real life Dr. Evil or something. But redirecting and in conjunction with the your affinity for making new words, Philanthro-Capitalism.
Yeah.
Where did that stem from?
That's actually my most favorite made up word I've ever made up, because I don't like this. Okay. Why I'm qualified to share this opinion. We built 32 self-sustaining villages in Haiti in the last 23 years. We have supported and provided a self-sustaining existence to 14,600 plus or minus children that were eating. Let's just give a visual for those who see that were eating dirt flavored with bouillon and lemon juice in the form of a patty. Like if I'm patting a patty of hamburger, but it's not hamburger, it's dirt. These children were eating dirt flavored bouillon and lemon juice. So in building 32 self-sustaining villages in Haiti over the last 23 years, we've cared for those 14,000 kids that now are eating 2 part protein, 1 part carbohydrate, and they're living in a self-sustaining village. What I mean by that is typically 50 houses, a community center, a school, church, a clinic, renewable food, clean drinking water, and some form of free enterprise so the village can be self-sustaining. That's what I call Philanthro-Capitalism. It's a hyphenated word. You take the best of philanthropy, which is the heart. You get rid of the worst part of philanthropy, which is charity. Charity exacerbates poverty, does nothing to solve the problem. Then you take the word, that's where the philanthro comes from, capitalism. You take the best part of capitalism, which is simply cash, money, and you get rid of the worst, which is greed, meaning self-serving purposes with that money. You marry the two, the heart with the money, because it takes money to build these villages, and I've been tapped by the Clinton Foundation. I was second in line by the first Trump organization, first Trump presidency, to be ambassador to Haiti, because we have been solving poverty problems on a very small scale 14,000 people out of a country that has 9 million is quite small. But it's worked. Aaron, we're 32 for 32. All 32 of our villages are thriving to this day because of Philanthro-Capitalism.
If you had said 32 houses, that would be incredibly impressive. You said villages.
Villages. Yeah. Yep.
That sounds great. The capitalism aspect of it, the investors, the builders, who's benefiting from it?
No. The capitalism part. It takes money to do this stuff. Here's the problem with most charities, let's call them. I don't call ourselves a charitable organization. We're a philanthro-capitalistic organization. The problem with charities is it's all about like hugging on the orphans. It's all about, and this is going to sound really callous and cold. It's all about the emotional return you get when you're doing a good deed for somebody else who's poor or indigent or homeless. I don't feel any better or worse about what I've done in Haiti. It's a stewardship. It's a calling. It's a responsibility. And yes, for those of you who can see, I wear a cross. I'm a Christian. And don't let this turn you off. But there is a passage in the Bible. And if you're not in the Bible, it's a great life mantra. So just forget forget I said Bible if you're just freaked out. But it's from the Gospel of Luke. Chapter 12, verse 48 says, "To whom much is entrusted, much is required." My whole book, The Tap, which is the only spiritual book I wrote, is based upon that one Bible passage. To whom much is entrusted, much is required. To whom much is given, much is expected. I was given a lot, Aaron, and it wasn't to put more cars in my garage, clothes in my closet, or food in my pantry. It was to share those blessings with those less fortunate in a philanthro-capitalistic way, where I can build a whole village in Haiti, 50 houses, community center, school, church, clinic, renewable food, clean drinking water, and some form of free enterprise for $350,000, for $350,000, the cost of an average house in South Florida. I can do a whole village.
What amazes me about Haiti is that the island of Hispaniola has got the Dominican Republic on one side, it's got Haiti on the other, and the difference in forestry, right? The difference is like North Korea and South Korea at night from satellite, because the trees are gone in Haiti.
Yeah.
The whole history behind that is one of the most depressing and sad things that I've ever heard.
It is. We don't have time for the whole thing, but basically what most people don't know is that about 60 years ago, the Dominican Republic was the underbelly of the Caribbean and Haiti was the jewel. It was the place to go. And in 60 years of corrupt leadership, that is completely reversed. Yeah, the reason, for those of you watching, listening, the reason there's no trees is that people cut those trees down when they're saplings to use the wood to make charcoal. And then the whole hillside is deforested. What happens in Haiti has soil like Hawaii, if you've ever been to Hawaii. I mean, it is fertile. But if you take all the vegetation off that, and Haiti is mountainous, when it rains, what happens to all that fertile soil? It washes into the ocean. It's just a vicious cycle that has happened there. So we're really keen. Our philanthro-capitalistic villages where they're self-sustaining in the sense that we have some form of free enterprise. That is an animal husbandry, a nursery for those trees that have been taken out of the ground. A fishing cooperative where we provide boats, motors, grinders, freezers, or something as simple as sewing machines. So the people in the village can sew and sell their goods and not count on charity. Because when we build a village, I was just telling the story to somebody on a plane the other day. When we build a village, you're not coming back to me for more money. We're done. We move on. If you fail, it's on you. I provided you everything. Our charity provided you with everything. I don't want to hear, because Aaron, I don't want to get political. I'm not even political. I have no issue with the welfare system, the entitlement programs. What I have a problem with is the entitlement mentality, welfare mentality. Big difference. So what I don't want to have happen in Haiti that has happened in the United States is, the United States, let's face it, there is a rampant problem with entitlement mentality and welfare mentality. I don't want that to happen in Haiti. That's why our model is constructed around self-sufficiency. No welfare, well, they don't have a government they can count on. And I don't want them to count on charity because that just ruins it. Look at Ethiopia. When we were growing up, Ethiopia was a story. Is Ethiopia any better off because it was flooded with charity? I say no.
That seems a little bit like the teach a man to fish type of theory.
Yeah, and provide them with the fishing pole and a place to freeze their fish and a place to sell it. Like we'll give them all the tools, and they run with it. And when I say we're 32 for 32, that means that all the villages are still thriving, and they've never come back for us for more money.
Well, I know you don't like to sit on your laurels or around for very long, and you've got the executioner cycle. But what is your latest redirect? What's gotten you excited now?
This book, Hell's Heaven, Is It Really Forever? It has been all-consuming for 2 years. I have 2 more chapters to write, and then it goes into editing and proofreading, and it'll be ready for September. That is really satisfying the need to create something, that genre, psycho-spiritual thriller, that didn't exist before. And at the same time, Aaron, we're finishing our first mountain modern home in Western North Carolina. So on the same day, and I'm gonna reveal the day soon, but on the same day in September, we're gonna have this big grand unveiling and a book launch party. Grand unveiling for the mountain modern home, book launch party at that home for the new book. So that's what's consuming and consuming me. And then, because I'm getting older, and this is probably the last time I'm going to do it, my book tours are, it's not TV stations, radio stations, podcasts, and the like. I mean, we do that, but that's not the focus. The last book tour I was on for my last book, my 9th book, we went to 85 homeless shelters in 70 cities in 60 days. Imagine that. So if I did 85 homeless shelters in 60 days, that was, like a shelter and a half every single day. There were some days we did 4 shelters in a single day. So this Hell's Heaven book tour, we're going to hit 100 homeless shelters in probably 75 days. And that's it. Like, I'm not doing it anymore. I don't have the energy to do that anymore. I got a team that says, Frank, I'll do one more with you. And then after that, that's it. That will start in September. And that's really a 15,000 mile lap around the country, stopping at homeless shelters in not every state, but probably 80 cities.
Well, it's a pretty big project.
The why is, getting back, the pathological optimist in me who wants the gift of discernment and awareness has taken the place of pride. Aren't you proud of all you've done, Frank? I never say, well, not never. In the last 10 years, maybe not that long, the last 5 years, I've dropped pride from my lexicon. I'm grateful for the awareness and discernment to be able to use the gift, which is to get in front of homeless people. Somehow, some way, they relate to my story. They love to hear about hope. And so what group of people, and it's not just, it's homeless shelters, soup kitchens, juvenile detention centers, abused women's facilities. Last tour, and I think you'll appreciate this, out of those 85 shelters we stopped at, 7 of them were veterans facilities. Going into veterans facilities and delivering a message of hope to a lot of people a lot of veterans who are very upset about the way older veterans, the way the country treated them. And so every single stop, listen, people think, why are you doing, like, you go to a homeless shelter. I'm not selling books, right? I'd do that if I was on Oprah or on TV or, Good Morning America. Great. By the way, I'll take that. But I'm selling hope, Aaron. And that's why we choose to go to homeless shelters over any other venue with our book tours.
That's pretty incredible. And I think that's one of those things that, like you've mentioned before, is that differentiation between narcissism and empathy and having that healthy attention or desire for the attention, because you can redirect that.
Yeah, there's a bad ego, there's good ego, and don't let it's so funny how ego gets a bad rap, but self-esteem is okay. I have good self-esteem. Well, I also have a very healthy ego in the sense that here's a healthy ego. I'm one of the best in the world at what I do. I am not afraid to tell the world about the fact that I am one of the best in the world at what I do. I'm not the best, but I'm one of the best at what I do. That's a healthy ego. You've got to be out there if you've been given a gift by God, it's sinful to sit on it.
There's a balance there, and it's never homeostasis. It's always changing. All right, we're always balancing. Sometimes we're feeling a little more selfish. Sometimes we're a little more altruistic, and that's the same with every aspect of our lives. So sometimes we got to focus on ourselves to achieve a certain fitness or financial level, and we can always be altruistic, have humility, but it's never stagnant.
No, it's not. I mean, with a healthy ego, the mirror is always facing outward. Unhealthy ego, the mirror is facing inward. And I always do my best to make sure that mirror is firmly placed in my hands, reflecting your needs, what it is that I can do to make your life better, be it my books or be it the homeless shelters or be it the houses. Mm-hmm. That's how, and yeah, I got to be able to speak up. Like there's so many people who have more on the ball than I do that are just too timid to let the world know that they exist and what they do is really worthy of listening to or watching or buying. That's just a travesty to me. And, I would rather be overrated than underrated.
Well, Frank, I think we're getting a little long here. I wouldn't want to keep it too much longer. Maybe this is a good time to segue into the countdown to impact.
Sure.
That's 3 books, 2 quotes, and 1 person who have all made an impact in your life.
Okay, so let's do the 3 books first. I guess that's why we're doing 3, 2, 1. 3 books would be Awakening by Anthony DeMello. Little quick side story. Anthony DeMello is my favorite philosopher. He died in 1987. Any book by Anthony DeMello is worth the read, but Awakening, I have read Awakening 10 times. It's that good.
Wow.
The second one is Hope from My Heart, that was written by Rich DeVos. And Rich DeVos was one of my mentors. He passed. He's the co-founder of Amway. He used to own the Orlando Magic. Mm-hmm. I learned more about Philanthro-Capitalism, like the whole concept, from him than anybody else. And then the third one is, as a matter of fact, I'm just starting to read it for the second time, The World, the Flesh, and Father Smith by Bruce Marshall. They're very, they're not your average books, but those are my 3 favorite, most impactful books. The two favorite quotes, because, I got a lot of them, but I'm going to go with, they're mine. Exercise your risk tolerance like a muscle. Eventually, it will become stronger and able to withstand greater pressure. One more time. Exercise your risk threshold or tolerance like a muscle. Eventually, it will become stronger and able to withstand greater pressure. And the second one is each one of us has been blessed with the ability to succeed at some level. And those blessings were not meant for your or my sole benefit. You must understand that whatever level of success you attain, that success was given to you as a gift so you could share the benefits of that success with other people less fortunate than you. I'll throw a third one in there. Just remember this one. I told you this a long time ago. If you're going to have regrets, which you will, regret what you did, not what you didn't do. Okay, so that's 3. Then we'll go with one person who had more impact on my life. And I'm not going to say the obvious, which is my parents. I'm going to say Rich DeVos. That man who mentored me for about 20 years has done more to shape the way I see the world, and in turn, the way other people who I've impacted see the world than anybody else. So that's why I recommend reading any of his books as well. But Hope from My Heart is my favorite one.
Awesome. And we're going to get those. You get some fresh book recommendations for me. So we're going to get those into the show notes along with those quotes. And last 2 questions. 1, where can people find out more?
So the best thing for people to do is my website has been referred to as Disney on a Desktop by PC Magazine. I think they go by PC Mag now. But anyway, so they wrote that about 7 years ago because on my website, you can see the villages in Haiti that we built. You can tour these beautiful mansions that I've built. You can read free chapters and listen to free audible chapters of most every single book that there are free chapters you can read. Not all my books are on Audible. You can see like this upcoming grand unveiling that we're having with the Mountain Modern Home, how to get an invitation to come to that party and the book launch event there. So you can spend my website. I should probably give out the website. We'll put them in the show notes, but Frank-McKinney, Frank-McKinney.com. And what was the last question?
Last question is, what's your definition of living a life of impact?
It's living out Luke 12:48. To whom much is entrusted, much is required. Like really, to whom much is given, much is expected. And there's another passage I really love. It's Hebrews 13:2 that says, "Be sure to show hospitality to strangers, for by doing so, some have shown hospitality to angels without knowing it." That is living a life of impact. You may have. Here's the thing with you, Aaron. You've impacted way more people than you'll know. When you get to heaven and you sit in the big IMAX theater and you look at your life, what you're going to see is, oh yeah, I remember impacting Frank at Badwater in 2023 when he was amazed by, me at mile 123 by the finish line and I couldn't see. I was, you were blind. But how many people have I told that story to? In other words, how many people down the line from the person you've impacted have in turn impacted other people? That's what I want to see on the IMAX screen when I get to heaven. The people had no idea, generations of people. Take Haiti, for example. How many of those children and their kids and their kids' kids are going to live a better life because we built those self-sustaining villages? That's living a life of impact.
Oh, thank you, Frank. This was it's a fun conversation, and I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, Aaron. I can't wait. I'm going to promote the heck out of this. Thank you for everything that you've done. You need, I'm sure you've been on your fair share of podcasts because you have no idea the impact that you have on people.
Oh, so thank you. Take care.